Ladies and gentlemen, my clock says it's 1300, so we'll start by at least with some of the housekeeping notes. I'm Doug Fuller and I'm sitting as chair today. Before the meeting starts, we have some housekeeping details to go over, and thank you for joining the Washington County Board of Road Commissioners for our May 5th virtual board meeting. Item number one that I'd like to cover is if you would like to make public comment during this meeting, we will prompt you at the appropriate time in the agenda to virtually raise your hand. If you are viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand by clicking Participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then the Raise Hand button at the bottom right corner of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from a touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand virtually by pressing *9. Once we get to the public comment section on the agenda, we will unmute the participants with raised hands, one at a time. Number two, the chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available only as a technical support for users on their computers or smartphones. If you are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and our systems administrator will help you troubleshoot. Number three, the audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video will be posted to wcroads.org in the coming days. Number four, today's meeting agenda is posted on the wcroads.org website, and there is a link available in the chat if you are joining us from your computer, and it's presently being displayed at least on the screen I'm looking at. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order. And since this is a virtual meeting and we can't see each other, I'll call the roll to identify the commissioners and directors. Again, currently speaking is the chairman, Doug Fuller. With us, I hope, is Vice Chair Barb Fuller. Barb, you there? Beep, beep.
Present.
There we go, thank you. Commissioner Rod Green, are you there?
I am here.
Oh, goody.
Good afternoon.
Managing Director Cheryl Siddell.
Present.
County Highway Engineer Matt McDonnell.
Present.
Director of Operations Jim Harmon. Present. And the Director of Finance and IT Dan Ackerman.
Here.
Thank you, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
It is our standard practice to begin our board meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance. Since we are hosting this meeting virtually today, instead we will start this meeting with a moment of silence to honor all those helping to battle the coronavirus and for those who have been killed by this terrible disease. Thank you. First item on our agenda would be the approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion for the agenda, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Commissioner Green, do you approve?
Yes, I do.
Commissioner Fuller
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller approves as well. So now we have an agenda. We have two sets of board meetings to consider today. The first of which is the board meeting minutes of April the 21st, 2020. Could I have a motion on those minutes?
I move acceptance of the board meeting minutes of April 21st, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any comments concerning those minutes from any of the commissioners?
I have none.
None.
Members of the staff, just speak up if you have correction or deletion or an addition. Hearing none, I'd like to have a vote on those. We'll start again with Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller says yes as well. So those minutes have been accepted. Secondly, on our agenda is the minutes of the working session of April the 21st, 2020. Could I have a motion on those minutes, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the working session minutes of April 21st, 2020.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Again, do we have any additions, corrections, deletions, thoughts out loud that you'd like to share? Commissioners?
I have none.
None.
Members of the staff? Hearing none, we'll have a vote on the acceptance of those minutes. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. We have adopted those minutes. Thank you. Moving on, we're at public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please at this, excuse me, please at this moment, I need to have you virtually raise your hand. If you're viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen and then the Raise Hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from a touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand virtually by dialing *9. The meeting host will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. The host will announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. As with all of our meetings, while this is the time to receive comments from the public, this is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allocated 3 minutes to address the board. Emily, do we have such people?
So far, Commissioner Jamnik has raised her hand. I'll unmute her now.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ruth Ann.
Hi. I just want to, my only comment is to say thank you to all of the people that work at the Road Commission for everything that they do and how they do it. I appreciate everything that they're doing to keep us moving forward. That's all.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. We will pass that along to everyone.
Please do. Please do.
Emily, do we have anyone else?
I don't see any other raised hands at this time, Doug.
Okay, thank you. At that point, I would ordinarily ask commissioners' comment on what public input we've had. Commissioner Fuller or Commissioner Green, any comments?
I have nothing to add.
Rod?
Just like to join in that I share the concern and respect and the approval of the work that the Road Commission is doing, as our County Commissioner Ruth Ann Jamnik has just expressed.
Thank you. Does any member of the staff have any comments they'd like to offer at that point? Hearing none, we'll move on to written communications, which starts on page 14 in your board packets. And I would simply ask if any of the commissioners have comments about any of the written comments that were provided, please comment presently.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Nothing.
Thank you. Nor do I. So we will move on to well, since we don't have any public comment, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move
approval.
adoption of the, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Rod.
adoption of the consent agenda for items 1 through 20 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Again, I need a roll call vote. We'll start again with Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. May I ask one question, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly you may.
On the road closure requests and items that are likely to be approved today, is there a provision in there for the potential continuation of the stay-at-home order by Governor Whitmer?
I did not see any of those in that. I would have to personally make the observation, and I certainly, this is not policy, but I would certainly make the observation that we have no legal authority to grant permission to do anything that is illegal. So if the governor, in point of fact, orders that we cannot have a run in October, which I think is one of the dates that we have a road closure for, then our permission that we're granting today would be invalid.
Thank you. I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Green.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. So moving on to action items, and we have two. And I believe I was earlier informed that the motion that we need is on page 36.
Yes.
Yep. The first item that we have is a Wagner Road and Waters Road intersection parcel 9 right-of-way acquisition. And in our booklet on page 36, there is a proposed motion that supports staff's request. Would someone like to make that motion?
Yes, I move that upon the recommendation of the county highway engineer, the director of engineering, and concurrence of the managing director, the board hereby approves the acquisition of a 0.278 acre or 12,078 square foot public road from the owner, Larry Swisher, upon a parcel of property commonly known as 3433 South Wagner Road in Lodi Township, Michigan, being the southeast corner of Wagner Road and Waters Road, and referred to as tax parcel number M1312-200-017 in the amount of $10,000, and further directs the chair and managing director to execute the counter offer to the good faith offer of just compensation as presented.
I support.
Been moved and supported. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Aye.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Fuller votes aye as well. Thank you. Now we'll move on to an action item number 2, that is the 2020 first quarter budget. And I would actually ask, with the managing director's permission, that Finance Director Ackerman comment briefly upon what changes he may have made since our discussion on this budget in the last working session, not today's, but the one preceding. Dan?
So I really wish I had a crystal ball to see first of all, how long the stay-at-home order will be in place and the impact on Michigan transportation funds. We've seen some estimates on that, but with the information that we have, and certainly we'll share with you the March receipts in a moment, but with all the information that we have currently, staff didn't feel that we needed to make any adjustments at this time. Certainly Matt has shared with you several potential impacts with projects, but we felt that's something that we can handle in the second quarter. So there are no changes from the budget that was provided to the board at the working session.
Thank you, Dan. Do my fellow commissioners have questions at this point for our finance director or
No.
any other staff member?
No.
Barb?
No, no.
Okay. Could I have we put the motion on the floor, did we not?
No.
but not yet.
Would one of you make that motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that upon the recommendation of the Director of Finance and the concurrence of the Managing Director, the board hereby approves the 2020 first quarter budget amendments as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. And thank you. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. Thank you. Reports. We will move to the County Commissioner's report. Ruth Ann, do you have a report you'd like to make?
Hi, thank you. I just want to again say thank you for everything everybody has been doing at the Road Commission to get us through all of this trying times. It speaks to the quality of the people that work at the Road Commission, and I am very grateful.
Ruth Ann, I cannot tell you how emphatically I appreciate your comments and that we've earned those comments. And I truly think that we have, but I again thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to road commissioners' reports. Before I blow this off in my mind, which I did at the last meeting, some time ago, last fall, before this particular series of events interfered with everybody's train of thought, we had asked our managing director to develop a tree plan and report back to us in the first quarter. The managing director has been otherwise employed. And at this particular point, with the acquiescence of my fellow commissioners, I'd really like to allow the tree plan to be discussed after we receive our two new commissioners so that they can be involved in the conversation as well. Would that meet everyone's approval? And
I think that's a great idea.
I have no objection.
Thank you. All right. That would conclude my remarks. Rod, why don't you, if you've got a report you'd like to make, please do.
Very simply, I joined the virtual meeting of the Executive Committee of SIMCOG on Thursday, April 27th. It was quite a challenge with over 60 people involved, but it was a good meeting. Of course, everyone is talking about the impact of the coronavirus on our economy and upon our federal and state dollars. But it was a good meeting, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Rod. Barb?
I'll report that on Monday, April 27th, I participated in the Ann Arbor Township virtual annual meeting. That's all.
Ah, how did that go?
It went very well. These Zoom meetings are becoming more and more comfortable every time. I thought it worked very well. Conversation was great. Clearly, the supervisor had previous conversations with staff, and there was very little to work through.
Excellent.
I thought it was a real efficient use of time.
Excellent. That's one thing that I have noticed, and I'll make the observation when we attend these, whether they're Zoom meetings or some other format, the meeting or the allotment of time is different, simply if for no other reason than the traffic. So I think it certainly has some plus things as well as minus things. So thank you, Barb. When's the next Parks meeting? And this is not a test, I'm just curious.
Next Tuesday, the 12th of May, and those are virtual meetings as well at this point.
Are they in the Morning, afternoon,
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Okay. Thank you. Cheryl, Managing Director's report.
Sure thing. Starting on page 80 of your board packet is the staff report. I would be more than happy to entertain any questions if you have any with respect to that. Also included at the very end, I believe on page 87, is the MTF report, which does show the beginnings of what we unfortunately expected to take place with respect to our MTF in light of COVID. So please keep in mind that those are basically our March receipts, and they indicate about half of a month of the stay-at-home order. So I will let Dan speak about that in a little more detail when I defer to him, but it's definitely a picture of what we expect to take place over the next few months. I also will just touch briefly on what I talked about at the working session this morning, that as Chair Fuller indicated, we expect to have 2 new road commissioners added to our board at the county board meeting on May 20th. And so we are actively preparing for the onboarding of those 2 new commissioners to welcome them on board and begin the introductory process of all that it is that we do. And so we are in the process of preparing for that. And then in addition, we are very grateful that the county board did approve the ballot language for the county road renewal and restoration of that millage. And we are also actively working on what the educational component of that will be, including we are in the process of preparing for, and hopefully we'll be scheduling for next Thursday, a meeting starting with our local elected officials on exactly what that means, what that plan would look like, the information that was used in putting that plan together. It will be very similar to the meetings that we held last fall, although a much abbreviated version, since those were pretty much all-day events. No food will be provided because we expect that they will be virtual meetings, so you'll be on your own for food as far as that goes. So unless you have any questions for me, I would be more than happy to turn it over, and I will certainly be happy to start with Dan, since we did a little sneak introduction there for the Michigan Transportation Funds.
Okay, as Cheryl mentioned, MTF for March compared to last year was down about 10%. And that's only for half a month of stay-at-home orders. So I fully expect April to be a decrease more than the 10%. And again, as long as this continues, I expect to see pretty significant decreases. We did receive some revised estimates from the state of Michigan. I kind of disagree with the revised estimates because they are only assuming a 1% decrease from the previous year. And I think that's overly optimistic. That would put our Michigan Transportation Funds at about $29,200,000. And the first quarter budget, we used about 28 million, which again, you guys probably know me by now, is a conservative number. Certainly if the receipts are much higher, we can adjust more easy to that, as opposed to, oh boy, the decrease is 50%. So again, I feel comfortable with our numbers, and certainly that in the second quarter, we'll have additional information, and if we need to make a further adjustment, we can. But I feel pretty good where we are with Michigan Transportation Funds. It's interesting because they've always been a challenge to budget for, and I've shared with you all the fluctuations, and you call MDOT and they say, oh, people are driving more or less. A lot of times you really have to drill down to see what's going on. But I think right now we're in a pretty good spot as far as where our budget is with those. So I don't know if there's any questions on that in particular.
No, sir.
Okay. Oh, sorry,
No.
Doug, go ahead.
I would just say, no, I did not have any.
Okay. So besides that, I'm happy to report we submitted our 2019 Act 51 report on time. Thank you, Commissioner Doug Fuller, for your your signature certifying the report, and that's been submitted, and we met our deadline, which is something that we always have. Was kind of looking to see if they would provide extensions or not, given these unusual circumstances, but as far as I've seen, they have not. So, so that is submitted and done. So kind of good to get that, not have to deal with that anymore, quite frankly. Also, so at 2 o'clock today, I have a virtual applicant meeting with representatives from the state of Michigan, potentially FEMA, to talk about the impact on COVID and any potentials for reimbursement for our agency. Our impact has been relatively minor, but there have been some impacts. And we want to make sure that if there is FEMA funds available, that the Road Commission can do all we can to receive that. So that'll be at 2 o'clock. It's a required meeting, so I apologize if the meeting goes, if this meeting goes beyond 2 o'clock. I need to attend that. Like I said, it is a mandatory meeting. I've gone through the initial phases. I set up our application, so we're pretty much where we need to be as far as that's concerned. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
No, but thank you.
Yep. And that's all I have, unless there's other questions for me.
All right, thank you, Dan. Jim, would you like to bring us up to date on operations?
Certainly. Pages 80 through 84 reflect the last 2 weeks of routine maintenance by the operations department. And the crews have been very busy, very productive in that period of time. In addition, working a lot on township agreements, and you saw evidence of this in the consent agenda today, and I thank the board for its approval. And I know that the townships are equally grateful. It's a highlight of my professional career to work with staff and work with each of our 20 townships to secure these important agreements. So much of it goes toward investments in our local road system, and in many cases in our primary system. So again, thank you, board, for those approvals. There are many more agreements coming in the next couple meetings. At this point, the operations department estimating a total construction value, and you may recall that multicolored large ledger that I provide, and I'll do that again here soon once we firm up a few more of the agreements. But total value at this point of $11.4 million. So that constitutes our county millage program, our primary road MTF investments, and also our township work to date, and some of the carryover, as you may recall, with Pittsfield Township to complete some of the residential street work that they bonded for last year. The township component, the total estimated cost, I thought you'd find interesting, $3.2 million so far, and that includes the agreements that you approved today. And of that, township share is $1.8 million. So I can't speak highly enough of our township partners. Many of them are grappling with the economic impacts of COVID-19, potential diminishment in state, local government sharing, and really going through some challenging deliberations to determine the extent to which they can partner with us. And many of them are making those commitments. Major projects, briefly, county millage projects. I'm pleased to report that Cadillac Asphalt, under the project management of Mike Bernbeck, our operations engineer, has completed 8 Mile Road between Pontiac Trail and Tower Road. That road is reopened to traffic, just minor restoration remaining. If you have an opportunity to drive it, I encourage you to do so. It's such a vast improvement over the prior condition a few weeks ago. Willis Road, another millage project between Button and Rawsonville. The road's been pulverized. It's been repaved through the asphalt base leveling course. It is open to traffic. We're waiting, Cadillac is awaiting rather a railroad permit, and that's anticipated to be forthcoming, and at that time they'll put the final wearing course on the road and complete it. Lower Circle, another primary road in Pittsfield Township and a county millage project. That road's being milled as we speak, and that'll be paved tomorrow. So that project's coming along nicely. Pleasant Lake Road is a millage project between Zeeb and Ann Arbor Saline. The actual Milling and paving will happen later this year, but in preparation of that, Road Commission direct forces removed accumulated roadside berm to improve drainage and make that investment more effective. Again, the substantive work will happen later this season. And Pontiac Trail from Joy to Dixboro, that's part of a much longer chip seal project, again funded by county millage. Cadillac did asphalt wedging. You can think of it as pavement repairs to repair the crown, restore the crown, prepare the pavement for seal coating. That'll happen most likely in early June. Then Road Commission funded primary projects, 6 Mile, Chubb to Pontiac Trail, asphalt base repairs and wedging was completed by Cadillac over the weekend, again in preparation for our funding of seal coating of that segment of road in Salem Township. And then operations working in partnership with our engineering department. Our engineering department, as you recall, secured a substantive haul route improvement agreement on Pleasant Lake Road between Zeeb and Steinbaugh. Mike Burnbeck, again, has been assisting in overseeing that work, and I'm pleased to report that the paving is completed and the aggregate shoulders are being placed today and probably through tomorrow and the next day, but the road is open to traffic and just so much improved over its prior condition. And finally, Road Commission staff and our heavy equipment crew and our shop participated yesterday morning and this morning in equipment orientation and some basic training on our new seal coat equipment, our new chip spreader and tar distributor that the board purchased last year. We've taken delivery of all of our new equipment and all in preparation for our upcoming seal coat season. And we're hoping to get underway later this month, but definitely in earnest the 1st of June. Dust control programs getting underway countywide, and the crews are beginning work on important ditching, roadside berm removal, and forestry operations, all as part of our gravel and limestone and paving projects for this year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have of me or the operations department.
Jim, there was some concern by Ricky Jefferson, County Commissioner, about the Stamford Road project and the timeline on that. Any idea when that might be completed?
I don't know when that will be completed, Commissioner Green. That is actually a permit project. That's a failing sanitary sewer, as you may recall, and under the jurisdiction ownership of Superior Township. I know that Managing Director Cheryl Siddle had communicated with Commissioner Jefferson and advised him along those lines. I know the township and the road commission, the public that road serves, are eager to see that sanitary repair completed and that road reopened to traffic. I apologize, I don't know what the timeline is at this point in time.
I can give an update. In working with Superior Township, that work's being done under permit. They've had some issues with dewatering. The sanitary manhole and line is at a pretty extreme depth, and they've had to do some dewatering. It's been ongoing for a couple of weeks with not much success. They recently drilled even deeper dewatering holes to a depth of 50 feet, and they anticipate that dewatering process to continue for the next 2 or 3 weeks. They've got a consultant monitoring that on a daily basis to see what the progress is. But really, they need to get the groundwater down to a substantial lower level than it is presently in order to make that repair. And so that's an ongoing, it was an unforeseen issue and one that they're reacting to the best of their ability. But certainly the groundwater condition is causing the delay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we move into the rest of Matt's report, did you have any further questions for Jim?
I do not.
All
No.
right. So Matt, why don't you continue, please? Thank you.
Sure. Keeping in the theme of projects in progress, I will do so. Also, I'll remind the board in the board packet on page 78 and 79, there's a list of projects. 78 is the state and federal projects, which sum total just over $20 million. And that combined with the number Jim spoke of earlier, over $11 million, it's a pretty big workload to pull off for the year, and certainly one that we're proud to execute. I appreciate all the coordination that's taking place between Jim and I and our staff. Certainly, it was no mistake that that 8 Mile Road got done quickly and ahead of the Pontiac Trail and 7 Roundabout project. So just know that those coordination is ongoing, and it is a lot to try and coordinate. But paving is taking place. Paving at Ann Arbor, Saline, and Wagner, concrete paving of the intersection is taking place today. Hoping that will wrap up today or tomorrow. There will be a period of time to allow the concrete to cure before work can continue to take place. But that project is coming along nicely, and we anticipate in the coming weeks, we are hopeful that we'll look to reopen the intersection. We do have some paving to coordinate. The haul route improvements go through that intersection, essentially going along Ann Arbor Saline Road. So we'll be coordinating that during the closure. In addition, our own crews will be building the signal that will signalize the intersection of Ann Arbor Saline and Wagner Road. So still more work to be done there, but certainly I'll update you in the coming weeks. Paving is scheduled for Chubb Road tomorrow, and that will take place, weather dependent, of course, for tomorrow and Thursday. Paving has taken place on Ellsworth Road as part of our preventive maintenance federal aid project. And I think the next location they're looking to go to is Forest Avenue, from the city limits to Ford Boulevard. We are prepping and getting ready for the Carpenter Road resurfacing project. That resurfacing is from Ellsworth to Packard, and that will certainly be an impactful project and looking to get started next week. So the contractors mobilized equipment and traffic control devices and have that ready to get started as well. Other projects I'd like to make mention of, we received bids for the Miller Road and Wagner Roundabout combined with the Miller Bridge replacement project. The bids received were through MDOT bid letting last Friday. The project did come in high. The estimate was roughly $1.8 million. The low bid was Fonts and Company at 2.2, so roughly 24% overage. The overage was more so on the bridge side, so roughly over 200,000 of the overage was in the bridge project. So the good news for the Road Commission is bridge funding is 95% funded with federal funds and 5% funded with local MTF. We feel that obviously there's uncertainty, and certainly that may be reflected in contractors' pricing. We did receive 4 bids that were of qualified contractors, and they were all very tightly, closely bid together. So we feel like it's a good bid with a good contractor who we have done a lot of work with in the past. So we are going to request that MDOT award that contract. So we will be moving forward with it. Because of the overages, it doesn't take another administrative step to get the State Transportation Commission to approve that award, and we'll work towards that. It may delay the start just briefly. We're scheduled to start in mid-June. That may slide to near the end of June. Certainly we'll update you as we get a little closer. And that's the update on that project. We are scheduled. Yes. Any questions?
Matt,
Yes,
would you please make sure the commissioners get copies of the actual bid results from the state on that road?
sure. I can email that out after the meeting here.
That'll be fine. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
For the next project update was Textile and Woodland. There was in the written communication I just want to bring your attention to. We are going to have a virtual public meeting next week, Tuesday, May 12th at 10 a.m. for the Textile at Woodland Roundabout project. And we're doing that in partnership, the project itself with the City of Saline. We're taking the lead on the project and taking the lead on administering and the public information as well. So, but just want to make you aware of that. And we're looking to get started also on Pontiac Trail at 7 Mile. We have a pre-construction meeting this week, and we'll be looking to start that mid-June in construction. So that's my update on projects. Any questions?
Yes. Come on. West of Chelsea, I can't say the name of the
Kavanaugh Lake?
Kavanaugh Lake. Thank you. I couldn't say the word Kavanaugh. I had lake part just fine. Anyway, Kavanaugh Lake. Any updates on that?
No updates to report. That's still scheduled to start construction after the 4th of July. Just a reminder, that's a permit condition. We can't get into the water until after that restriction is passed.
Are you still convinced that the Amtrak and the contractor have come to I shouldn't say an impasse, an agreement on their paperwork?
That is my understanding.
Okay. As you know, I'm particularly concerned with Amtrak projects. So anyway, thank you.
Any railroad project tends to be of concern.
Yes. And speaking of railroad projects, Island Lake Road, the overpass. What I see there, and you drive it probably most days, is that sheet metal shield I see up there what it is that they wanted to accomplish?
What it is a precast concrete. So think of it almost as a barrier wall to keep the ballast from
Going over the side, yeah.
Yes, correct. So it is a precast concrete wall, and then a railing is affixed to the top of the precast concrete. It replaces a previous dilapidated timber and sheeting. There was a combination there.
So what I see now is what I'm going to see for the next, until that falls off?
Well, I'm hopefully that is a permanent fix for quite some time, and
Okay.
my understanding that's as much as they're going to do.
That's what I wanted to hear, or that's what I wanted. I wanted someone to tell me. So, okay, thank you.
Yes.
That concludes my interest, I think, so far today. Thank you.
And that was a project accomplished by Amtrak on behalf of the MDOT Office of Rail. The structure is theirs, and the road below it and under it is obviously ours. So we have some involvement.
Indeed. Not to
Just
mention-
west of the city of Dexter.
Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Fuller, before we conclude, it appears that Commissioner Schenk has joined us.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Schenk, any comments you'd like to make at this point?
I don't have any comments, thank you.
Okay. With that, we seem to have exhausted our agenda. My fellow commissioners have anything else they'd like to discuss this afternoon?
If nothing else,
I have nothing. No.
Okay. Could someone make a motion to adjourn, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move adjournment.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Again, we'll have a roll call vote. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. We are adjourned, and we all thank you.
Thank you.